All right, welcome back, everybody. So, we are about to start week 5. So, we're going to talk about literature reviews today. Before we do that, though, let me give you just a quick heads up on last week. So, as you may have seen already from the announcement posted, only half the class did the assignment for last week. That's a problem. So, you know, the assignment for last week was for you to really figure out what you're going to look at and how you're going to look at it. Without that, you don't have a plan. That's why it was called the roadmap to research. I mean, that really was designed to get everybody to a point where they could start collecting information, at least not data, but information in the form of a annotated bibliography. And so that just didn't happen for half the class. So make sure that you're thinking about that. So as we think about it now, you see week 5 here on the screen. The annotated bibliography is due at the end of this week. So that is again where you're going to go and find at least 10, no more than 20 sources um, that relate to your particular topic. Now, some folks are not going to have a problem with that at all. I mean, in fact, all 4 of the folks that turned in their work are going to be fine on that. And I've given them feedback and some different ideas to think about. For the other folks, I'm flying blind with you. I don't know what I can. I don't know how to help. So, if you didn't do that assignment, it's gonna really hurt the grade. But it's too late now. So you can definitely still do it and get feedback, and that's going to help your grade moving forward because you're going to need every point you can get. Um, and part of those points are going to come from the lit review. So before we get too far in, let's take a look at the syllabus here. And we've got the what is a lit review assignment, or rather lecture, to talk about today. This won't be all that lengthy. I'll show you just like a single page that I have for you here in the course pack, as well as a couple examples. And then, of course, your annotated bibliography will be due at the end of this week, so on Sunday. The following week, we will not have anything new. That's going to be a chance for you to just work on that lit review. So this is really a good time to get caught up, especially if you missed the assignment this week. You're going to need to work quickly so that you can go ahead and get in your annotated bibliography on time. But it will, at least I hope, give you a chance to hit the reset button and get back on track. Now, if you're one of the 4 that are already on track, stay on it. Just keep moving, and you should be fine. So let's jump down in the course pack. Let's scroll through. We'll get to this week. Week 5, what is a lit review? So let's blow this guy up. Now, when you think about a lit review, there's different ways to think about it, and it may make a difference if you're doing something more quantitative or qualitative. And that's another reason that I've sort of extended this out, and we have all of next week just to work on the lit review. Um, what you'll see here is that you're going to go and find existing literature, stuff that's already out there that deals with your topic. Now, it is unlikely that you will find, at least for the 4 folks who I've seen their thoughts on this, it's unlikely that you will find research that specifically deals with the exact same thing you are looking at. However, it is likely you will find information about related areas that you're going to be able to, you see it in bold there, read and then synthesize. And what that means is you're going to be able to take information on a variety of related topics and then deduce from that information an assumption or glean some information from it. So let me just give you an example here. Um, the research that I'm working on right now deals with personality types and peer peer consultants. And I want to know if one personality, not really type, but personality traits are correlated with different services. So, in other words, are speech consultants more outgoing? Spoiler alert, they are, especially when compared to like Writing Center or research center employees. However, we found that research center employees are more empathic than speech lab employees. So, what I could then do, what I did earlier, was think about, okay, here are these elements, these personality traits that I think might be interesting, might play a role. And so in my lit review, I found a bunch of information on those traits, and then from there, wrote my research questions. But the idea that you're going to find something specific and exact is very unlikely. So I know one person is looking at nonverbal communication, nonverbal behaviors, and socioeconomic statuses. So what that person could do in just two big chunks of a lit review, right, would be one, nonverbal communication behaviors. What are they? Why do we do them? How do we show them? And that's a huge field of information. And part of that person's job will be to limit that down to just a couple pages, just maybe the highlights that you are most interested in. Then that person will need to think, okay, is there a specific kind of nonverbal that I want to focus on? And maybe they already have that in mind. Then they could make that a subheading. If they're not sure yet what kind of nonverbal behavior they want to focus on, they could then see what the literature says. See if there's something out there that says, the way that we blank, what is it? Walk, dress, the tone in our voice. It could be anything. What do we do that might be very distinctive? You could also think, how am I going to do this study, the actual physical data collection? Let's say this person decides, as I advised, to just watch people. Just go somewhere that's fairly populated and watch folks. If that's what you're going to do, you need to look for something and review something that is easy to observe. So in other words, you don't want to do, pardon me, like microaggressions or twitches, that kind of thing, blinks. That's going to be hard to just observe and not look strange, as you're bending around to see what's going on. So pick something that is observable, easily observable, and include that in your lit review. So that's one section. Then the other section, they want to know if there are distinctive nonverbal behaviors between socioeconomic classes. So then you just need a little research on socioeconomic classes in America. What are the big ones? What are the cutoffs? Are there trends with these groups? That kind of thing. And again, that might fit into one or two pages. And then really you've got what you need in order to consider that a lit review. What is a lit review not? Well, it is not a summary or an annotated bibliography. It should not sound or be written like a list. The biggest mistake that people make consistently with lit reviews is that they will write one paragraph per source, and that's the way that they lay it out. That's not a lit review. That is the annotated bibliography. So the synthesis part is really going to be you citing multiple sources in a single paragraph, because it's not like you're just focused on what this one source says. It's that you're focused on what is out there on distinctive nonverbal behaviors. And within that, there might be 4 or 5 articles that are going to have some information that applies to understanding what a distinctive nonverbal behavior is. So, instead, think about these, as I say there in the text, they're sources that deal with similar information or that specific subtopic, and group them together that way. Don't do it as a list. Think about it again more as a holistic view of what's out there. And if you want to compare it to your annotated bibliography, which again, reminders due Sunday, this is just the annotated bibliography is just a summary of these articles. And it helps you organize the lit review. What you can do if you want to go step by step from one to the other, the middle step would be to take that annotated bibliography and then to see what each of those sources talk about. In terms of maybe it's a specific nonverbal behavior. Maybe it's something about high socioeconomic classes. Maybe it's something about nonverbal trends in America, whatever it is. group those together. And some might go in more than one group, right? But you could even color code it or put them in bubbles if you like bubbles on paper, and really say, okay, these are some themes that I see. This article touches on it. This article touches on that one. Oh, I can also put this one down here. And that might help you see how the lit review will be laid out, because those bubbles then would basically become your paragraphs, or maybe your subheadings, headings and subheadings. So it will help you, the annotated bibliography will help you organize your lit review, but it is just one piece. So, you got to go from the summary, so you know what things are about, to organizing them in a way that they are put together by topic, not by article, and then making sort of a narrative. In other words, wording that synthesis, that connection to this holistic understanding about what's going on. And these two documents, as you see there, will work together in that way, but you've got to do that middle ground work to move from one to the other. Now, the last thing you see there is that research questions and hypotheses are at the end of lit reviews. Now, I know in the assignment that 4 of you turned in this past weekend, that there was a question on there, what is your research question? And that's true. That's more of a primary research question. And what you'll see, for those of you that got feedback, is that I added some information that will help you refine that research question. So, for example, someone wants to look at the way that social media has changed face-to-face communication. And the question is something along the lines of, how has social media use, specifically with the current younger generation, changed face-to-face communication? Well, there's an assumption there. The assumption is that it has, in fact, changed communication. So if we want to look at how it has changed face-to-face communication, we first need to note that it indeed has changed it. And that's where the lit review will come in. So you would find evidence in existing literature that says social media has made a significant change in the way we communicate face-to-face. And here's how they found that. Here's what they see happening. And so this research then might pick up with, specific cases. So, how has Instagram, specific form of social media, changed the way we communicate face-to-face, but in a specific way, communicate face-to-face in a relationship forming stage. So in other words, when you are trying to maybe date someone, talk to someone, see someone, some sort of a romantic relationship, and they go and they look at your Instagram, how has the fact that they have already seen multiple photos of you, how does that impact the way that they communicate with you, or you to them, in a face-to-face setting? So eventually, even if you meet folks online, the idea is that you'll eventually meet them in person, I imagine. And so what changes since you've already had that social media history with this person and that social media relationship? What now is different? How will you know? Because if you're doing that study, you could do something where you have a real, laboratory style setting where it might be, okay, I want you to look at these pictures and then I want you to go talk to that person. And whereas the other group, I just want you to go talk to the person without any Instagram, and then I'll compare and find the differences. That would work, but that's a lot of work for something like this. So how will you say that it has changed, social media has changed the way we communicate in a face-to-face setting, without knowing how we, before social media, communicated in a face-to-face setting? Unless you want to do all that work yourself, that would be where the existing literature would come in. So, the vision of the lit review for that person might be pre-social media communication, and talk a little bit about the modes that were used, the challenges that existed, were there pros and cons of both, what was happening. And so you'll want to establish the way things were before you can talk about the way things are and how they have then changed. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you're sort of looking at this sheet in front of us here, you'll see that your question has been answered. If that has been answered, then you could apply that question to new contexts, and that would be getting specific, or you can move on to the next logical question. So someone wants to know if social media has, oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. I just looked at all these. Well, let's just go with something sort of made up here. But if someone wanted to say, okay, the purpose of my research is to know if, oh, that's right, social media has made us more visual communicators. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Let's assume that that question's not been answered. Great. That person then can look at social media as part of the lit review, and then visual communication as part of the lit review. That's all they would need to do. Now, if that person seems to find an article or two out there that says social media has impacted human use of visual communication, great. Now the next logical question is how? Maybe that an article answered that and it said that it made us more likely to use visual communication. Okay, who's us? And does that also apply to college students? Maybe that's what you want to look for. Or the next question might be, since we know that it has made us more visual with our communication, what are some of the most common uses of visual communication that we see in a particular group? So you see where I'm going with this. It may be the case that your original question still works because no one's ever answered it before in an appropriate way for what you're asking. But it's also very likely that someone has asked and answered one of your questions. And so if that's the case, there's no need to do it again. Move on with that line of research and continue to develop it further. So your lit review will tell the reader what is already known about your topic, and that will allow you to then get a good research question or a hypothesis so that you can look at what is not known about your particular topic. So let's look at a couple examples here. And these are up on our Blackboard site. If you go to week 5, you'll see sample qualitative work, sample quantitative work. So let's look at these for a second. You may have to click on two things here. This is a qualitative article. You see it there, the source Qualitative Research Reports in Communication. And it's Social Media and Active Shooter Events, a School Crisis Communication Challenge. So I won't read the whole thing for you, but what I will show you is how they've sort of divided this up. Now, qualitative research doesn't always use the easiest to follow headings. We'll use APA setup, so everything will have a heading. But let's kind of see where they are here. So in the opening paragraph, you can probably get a lot of what they're looking for here. So preschool through 12th grade school shootings are very prevalent. They report that this number is up. When all these things are considered, assaults, suicide, and accidental shootings, it's really just a bad situation. And so what they're doing here is justifying why they need to do this study. The problem is real, so let's do it. Whoops. So then they talk about what's out there that can be monitored. How can we monitor this sort of stuff? And they said there's not a lot out there. Very little scant research exists on what could directly inform the management of these events. Then it gets into some where social media represents one particular communication challenge, and it gives you some information. Then they break it over into some background on crisis communication research. Then they talk about that, and they come up with 2 research questions. What social media challenges do school crisis teams experience during the school crisis communication process? And what social media strategies have the school crisis teams developed for school crises? So really they're looking for 2 different things there. What are the challenges that exist, and what are the strategies that will get around these challenges? Now, if you back up and read through here, they have established that there are social media challenges. And that's pretty much what all of this is about. Because if there was something out there that said, yeah, really it doesn't cause any more challenges, school shootings don't, it's just like anything else. But that's not the case. It does cause challenges, and they've shown that here. And so then they've talked about why it matters that we deal with those, and that's because of effective crisis communication. And now they want to know what those challenges are and what strategies can be used. And then they get into how they're going to do the study, and that takes you to the next few sections of the paper. So in this sense, that's one way to think about your lit review. Now look, it's not that long, right? I mean, it's pretty brief. These shouldn't be huge. It's not a dissertation. You know, I think my dissertation lit review was like 78 pages or something. Yours should be about 4, right? So keep that in mind. That's double spaced. Let's jump back for just a second here and look at another example of the quantitative work. So this is an article that I wrote not too long ago, and so it starts here. I again established that we need to do this work and why in that opening paragraph, and then we get down into some more specifics. So the idea here, consultants in the classroom. So the Speech Lab wanted to put embedded consultants in classrooms so that there would be a consultant that was attached to each group of students so that they would have sort of a connection. They'd be more comfortable talking to and asking questions of the consultants, whether it's Speech Lab, Writing Center, or Research Partner. So what we've done then is we found a little information on collaborative consulting. So what is the kind of work that we do in these centers? We got to establish that before I can just say a Speech Lab consultant went in. Well, who are these people? What do they do? Then what is an embedded consultant? So it means that they're actually part of the classroom, but I needed to establish that first to be clear. And then I like to talk about empowerment at the center, and that's the goal. I'm trying to make sure that we are able to empower these students, and my thought is having a student in the classroom from our service will help to empower them, because that's what some of the consultants are trained to do. And then I needed to determine what is empowerment, and from previous research that's out there, including my own, I define that as being a combination of confidence, your ability to influence other people, and then your personal agency. So I write that out, and then that left me with 5 research questions here. So you can read through those and see that's what I was left asking. So I knew a lot about what the kind of work is that my consultants do. I know a lot about what embedded consultants are, how they work, and how that has been effective or ineffective in the past with other models. But what I don't know is about this particular group and this particular peer consulting style. So, you know, is there a difference between these things? And they all say basically the same stuff. Is there a difference between reported blank between the embedded consultant group workshop, embedded consultant group workshop group, and the traditional / control group? So it was a very straightforward experimental design. And so that's the idea that I'm working with here. So regardless at this point, if you are doing quantitative or qualitative work, the lit review is largely the same. The format might take a little bit of a different approach, and the writing style will definitely take a different approach. So if you're doing a qualitative approach, it's going to be more narrative. You know, it's going to be, we can all remember when we were in school and that we had these concerns, and wouldn't it be nice if there was someone in the room that we could ask a question to? Well, this might be the case now. And we know that embedded consultants help students with this, that, and the other thing. In fact, one story says that, and you could give these examples. Quantitative work is just going to be like, the type of consultant we're looking for is this. Embedded consulting is this. There's not really a hard narrative. It's just a very facts-only sort of approach. And again, there's pros and cons to both of those, but you know, the idea is still the same with the lit review, in that it's finding what's out there, applying it. We're really taking it all in at the same time in this holistic way through synthesizing it, you know, putting it all the pieces together, and then letting us know what is known, letting the reader know what is known, and then the research questions, or hypothesis possibly, but more likely research questions, are what is unknown. And those are what you're asking. And then we'll figure out later how to answer those questions. So again, a couple of big takeaways from this lit review talk today. And I know it's brief, but it's all right. First, if I can get back to where we were here. Just kidding. Where did it go? There it is. First thing is that you're going to need to do some digging to find some of this information. Sometimes things come easy, sometimes they don't. My advice to you is, as you dig through some stuff, look at academic peer-reviewed journals. That's important on the library database, but you can always start with something a little less demanding. A Google search is fine for starting. Same thing with like Wikipedia even. Don't cite it, for God's sake, but if you go and look at the end where there are footnotes or endnotes, they usually have hyperlinks to some pretty good stuff. Not always, but often. So check that out. Try to be creative with the wording that you use. As I mentioned before, it's unlikely you'll find anything that specifically deals with what you want to look at, just like with my example that I just showed you. But if you think outside the box, and I hate that kind of like, think outside the box. Well, what that means here is that, you're just thinking of your topic is in the box. What's really close to your topic, but it's just outside that box. What would that be? And those are the areas that you'll want to do some general searches for, some specific searches for, and go ahead and narrow that down in those database searches. Now, when you go to the library's website, and let's just do that while we're all here together. Ooh, sodium in a teaspoon. Okay. Let's do gvsu.edu/library. You see databases there. You can search here, but I don't advise you just to start there. Go to databases. And since we're all doing something related to COM, I'm telling you, you may find things in places like JSTOR, but your best bet is going to be Academic Search Ultimate. So click on that. If you're off campus, of course, you'll have to sign in and all that, but here's what your search will look like. So for the person who is doing nonverbals and socioeconomic status, let's look at, I need to capitalize everything, nonverbal communication, good, and socioeconomic status, and just see what we get. 3,862 hits. Good. Here are some signs of socioeconomic status. Let's just look at it here. You see a thin slicing approach. What this is from a guy named Bakhtin. That just means that you're taking observed events or utterances, and you're just taking a little piece of it out and looking at that piece and assuming that it's representative of the larger behavior. So yeah, video 60-second slice of these interactions. They're coding it for nonverbal cues. Oh, this is great. So whoever this is all you. Let me just freeze here for a second. You can pause it and find it, but you'll probably want this one. This looks good. So that was pretty easy, right? That one came nice and quick. Now, they won't always do that, as I said. Oops, I went too far back. I can't see with my picture here. Children's verbal and nonverbal, probably not so useful there. Longitudinal relations, maybe. School children with spectrum disorder, factors modulate culture and mental health. That might be useful. Again, lots of this stuff with children. So what we might do, and if you're not familiar with this, it's okay. Come up here and put not children, because you probably don't want to observe children. It will be an IRB nightmare. There we are back with that one. And then here we've got something in a different language. Let's do some narrowing, shall we? Come over here, click on full text, click on peer-reviewed. I wouldn't mess with the date too much, just because, there might be something out there that is old, but it's sort of seminal. It sets a new line of research out there. Now, we can also do, because I don't think that English is the only language that produces good academic research. That's just not true, but it's the only one I can read. A little French, but that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and select only English. That got rid of the document I couldn't read. And so now I can get in a little deeper. I've got 357 articles to sort through now, and that is so much better than 3,000. Now, I don't expect you to read all these, right? Don't do that. But honestly, it's not that big of an ask to just scroll through these and see what's out there. And don't forget, as you use a database like this, you can come right over here and click on this folder, and that's all you have to do. And that'll drop it in a folder for you. So you decide, oh, that might be good. You don't have to go and look at it here and click on it and wait for it and then check it, maybe, and then you got to go back and it's going to push you to the start. Oh, up here now, where was I? Just throw them in a folder. And then once you go through those, I mean, you can do it pretty quickly, right? Like, oh, that one probably won't be applicable. That might be high status allocators to elicit greater punishment by I don't know what that means, but it might work. Let's try it later. This is more about sex than it is, whoops, didn't mean to click it. More about sex than it is socioeconomic status, so we can skip that one. You know what I'm saying here. So go ahead and throw them in. Then at the end, go to your folder, and you're going to have these nice and clean lined up for you so that you can actually go through and now look at, maybe 20, 30 articles instead of 300 and some odd articles. So that's the way to go there. Again, you can do Google searches, and there might be some news stories. There might be some personal accounts. There may be some books that pop up that are useful. But remember, you're going to need to access these things, and it's going to need to stand up to the credibility test that would go with a project like this. So this is just your safest bet, is going to a database and searching this way. So that's probably a good approach to this. Again, start maybe with Google to get a feel for what's out there if you're not already familiar, but definitely use these databases, specifically this Academic Search Ultimate. Used to be called Academic Search Premier, but I guess it's upgraded. So that's what I advise. Okay, so just to recap again, find this Word document again. Oh, I keep forgetting it's over here. So we're not going to do 2 annotated bibliographies. The annotated bibliography is due at the end of this week. The Lit Review is one step beyond the annotated bibliography. That step that separates them is synthesis, grouping by theme, grouping by category, not by author, not by article. Then you're going to synthesize it and present it as a holistic understanding of the subtopic, because you're going to go outside the box. Then you're going to wait until the end of the Lit Review to establish a research question or maybe a hypothesis. But the idea there is what we already know, what we don't. What we don't know is what you're asking. And so that's the way research works in a nutshell. So I hope this is helpful. What I advise you to do, if you do have some questions, and we're going to come back to that in just a second, but if you have any questions about this, definitely ask me. But what I have found helpful for myself is to just go and pull up some of these articles that we were just looking at. Let's get back to one here. Where's the folder? If I want to look at this, where does the source come from? Let's see. So if I want all of this, I need to go over to the left side and go PDF full text. That's why I selected full text. And then here's the article. So here's the journal name, by the way. Medical Education Online. That's what you'll need to cite. Well, you'll actually need to cite the author, but in the oral presentation, that's what you'll cite. So here you can go and see how they have done a Lit Review. Now, they don't have any hard subheadings. It's just sort of this ongoing background. And that's it. It's a very short piece. So that should get you through pretty quick. We, again, will want these headings and subheadings. So think about how APA would use that. And that's Lit Review in the middle. And then the 2 or maybe 3 big ideas on the left in bold with a space under them, enter button under them, and then beyond that title you would have the one where it's bold but it starts a new paragraph. So if you're not familiar or if you've forgotten, go to APA OWL Purdue, click on that, and they've changed this a little bit, but it's still what we need basically here. So let's see if we can find, it's called serrations. Well, they've changed it quite a bit. Style guide, let's try, here we go. Headings and serrations. And that's the way they'll look. So this would be your lit review. For me, maybe this would be pure consulting, pure consulting, embedded consultants. Those would go there. Then a space with a new paragraph. Then it's going to be italicized in bold with space and a new paragraph. Then it's indented. You see, I don't know how far down you'll need to go. Probably not past the third, if that. But that is something to keep in mind as you look at this. All right, again, if you have questions, as always, let me know. Otherwise, I hope that you have a good week. Remember, next week, nothing new, because that's a time for you to continue to work on this. I do have office hours every week if you want to meet and talk about this, or we can set up an appointment and do it. Otherwise, I'm pretty available. So let me know what you need, and I will do my best to get it for you. Otherwise, happy writing, and I will talk to you soon. See ya.